Hey guys, Drifter here. We're back with another episode of Ghost Stories, and today's guest is going to be a little bit unusual. She's from the other side of the pond, and she's got a nice, proper British ghost story to tell us.
Hi, yep, my name's Aimie, and I just want to say thanks for letting me share this story. And should we get straight to it?
Absolutely. It's all yours.
Right then. So this story is similar to one of your previous ones, that being the haunted house that you lived in.
Yes, the one in Kentucky that was nightmarish.
That's right. So to start, I had to pick my mum's brain a little bit, and she told me some of the memories that she had of this house. So this will relate to my personal experience of the house in just a bit. So the story begins 33 years ago when my mum was 10 years old, and she moved to this house with her mum, dad, and her brother. And from what she tells me, she had a good childhood in the younger days, nothing out of the ordinary. And I don't know too much on the previous residents of this house, but what I do know is this house actually used to be a dentist surgery in the 1930s.
Well, that's a place where I can guarantee you that there was a lot of pain and suffering, but I wouldn't wager that it was too high on dead patients and murder and, extreme things like that.
Yeah, exactly. But it adds to the creepiness of the story. But anyway, this household was a very hateful, toxic environment. Both my grandparents were heavy, heavy alcoholics. So there was a lot of abuse and violence in the home. Not towards my mum as such, but towards each other. They'd often fight, and not just verbally. A lot of the time it was physical, knives and suicide attempts, all sorts. But the house itself, I'll give you a little bit of background information on the house as well. It's a kind of bungalow house. It's in a small segregated area of the town. And the residents who live there, they're all elderly and retired. It's a bit different in over here in England. Everything's really crammed in, so it's not as desolate as where your little house was in where was it? Sorry.
Kentucky, close to the
Kentucky.
Appalachian Mountains, very, very poor region. But you said segregated. Do you mean like racially, or was it just like a little pocket of old people that live there?
That's right. Yeah. It was quite a big town. There was about 20,000 people living there, but it spread quite a lot out. There were a lot of field areas, and there'd be small sections of different sorts of people. So there's that. But the house was on a really steep hill, so this house, which this is one of the things that I vividly remember about it, it had a huge cellar, went under the whole entire house, and when you go in the cellar, you could see the light shine down through the wooden panels of the flooring above.
That actually sounds really cool.
It kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen like the Chainsaw Massacre or anything like that. It kind of puts a horror scene in your head.
Classic horror scene, hiding in the basement. You can see the
Yeah.
light through the rafters. People are walking around upstairs. Oh no, they're gonna find me.
Exactly, really creepy environment. In fact, my nan actually had a secret hole in the kitchen where she'd drop her alcohol bottles through the hole, and it would smash under the cellar. So she was a really heavy drinker. So yeah, but anyway, my mum did manage to share a few significant memories with me of like mysterious happenings in the house, and this is where it kind of gets creepy because she gave me one story, for instance. Bear in mind, she was 10 years old, so how the mind works at 10, trickery and everything. But she had a friend, and his name was Jason, and he'd often come round for dinner, and at the age of 10, what do you do to occupy yourself? You play hide and seek, little games, things like that. And she told me she was playing hide and seek just around the house, and it was Jason's turn to hide. So, my mum's looking for him, and she hears a scream, and Jason's crying for help, saying that he's being scratched. And he was hiding under the bed covers. My mum goes to find him. He comes out, and there's evidently scratches down his back with no explanation. So That's one story she's told me.
So I'm going to go on the explanation path here and take the logic against you, so to speak. The
Yep.
explanation couldn't be bed coils under the bed. It couldn't be some sort of small animal or rat's nest that he stirred up and pissed off.
I mean, it's hard to imagine that anything like that was there. She tells me, you know, just your average bed, nice mattress. Nothing there significant that's gonna scratch you in the way that it scratched him. I mean,
Yeah.
she told me it almost drew blood. It was like a cat scratch, and I mean there weren't any cats there at the time.
Gotcha.
So-
Well, we'll assume that they were smart enough to not get scratched by a stationary object and blame it on ghosts.
Exactly. But another short story she shared with me, quite a horrible one actually. As I mentioned, she moved there with her brother, and her brother was 6 years older than her, I think, and so 16. And I mentioned the cellar. She was asked to go fetch some food or whatever from the cellar freezer, and on this occasion, she's gone down there, and her brothers actually locked her in the cellar in the pitch black. Weren't any lights or anything, and of course, when things like this happen, adrenaline rushes, your mind plays tricks. But whatever. She tells me she was actually pulled around the neck, so much so that she struggled for breath. So I don't know, wind.
That's actually an experience that I've had once before. I remember I was climbing a ladder at one time and it was actually in a place in Texas, and it just felt like something snatched the collar of my shirt, and I fell right off that ladder, and I busted pretty hard, almost broke a leg, but it wasn't something I was imagining. I didn't just slip. I remember the shirt tightening and the little choke against the Adam's apple, and just in the back of my head, I only had time to think, "What the fuck?" as I fell over.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things you can't really explain. You really have to experience it.
Yeah. And then you get on the internet and you're like, the invisible thing pulled me, and everybody's like, yeah, sure, right, it did, buddy. You sure you didn't land on your head?
Yeah, exactly.
Just, you gotta take their word for it.
But yeah, moving on from my mum's memories, we'll go to a more recent time, which happened in my lifetime, so I'll be talking about my personal experience with it now. My mum's married. She's had me and my sister, and so when I was the age of 12, both my granddad and my nan actually died in the same year through fibrosis of the liver, which is an alcoholic related disease.
They both died of that?
Yep, in the same year.
Ooh.
Yeah, tough times, but alongside with that, they did have 7 cats that died as well, and you'll see why that's relevant in a moment, I guess. But yeah, so at this point, the house has been left to my mum. It's a 5-bedroom house, worth a lot of money, really nice place to live as well. And despite the awful things that happened in her childhood, you know, she saw a lot of bad things, toxic things came from this house, a lot of bad memories. But it seemed like a good choice to move there, you know. Financially, it was nice, schools, things like that. Benefited each of us, so we went to live there as soon as possible.
Did you live there with your father, or was it just with your mother?
It was the full family, my dad, my sister, my mum and me.
Okay.
So I'll start off by saying, and I'm sure you can relate to this, you've said it in your previous videos, but upon entering the house, it was just gloomy and eerie, and there's a sense of presence, you know, like a feeling that you're being watched.
I know that feeling quite. Even normally in a creepy place, when you put other people in the room or turn the TV on, just, I guess, the way our brain works, that feeling goes away. But what you're talking about is, I've had other places that you go to, no matter how many people in the room or how big a party you try to have, it's still just kind of creepy, and you can even see the other people looking around a little bit like, man, there's something wrong with this place.
Yeah, and that's true in the family as well. I remember sitting in the front room, even with the TV on, and there was just an awkwardness, you know. But yeah, that feeling didn't settle too well with my mum as either. I mean, she'd been through a lot there, so she wasn't happy to be there. But we got on with things, and I've thought about this before. Some people like to say that they like the feeling of a loved one looking down on them, or the presence of them being around you.
I've heard that.
But I think there's a difference when that loved one was in the nicest way possible, quite sinister. I mean, it's almost like being haunted, and that brings like the question: can spirits haunt a house? And I don't know, but there's the small things, like I'd often hear bangs and knocks. Various times I've come downstairs in the morning to find the front door wide open. Just random things. And
this isn't something that could be blamed on animals or a very poor locking mechanism on the door?
I can't see, so I mean, the area's quite a built-up area, pavements, everything. The only animals that really were about were foxes, and we had pretty good locks. It didn't happen previously. This was about 3 months into living there, so that's when things started to kind of take effect. The first 3 months, it was happy. We're in the new big house, and it wasn't really that noticeable.
I've had that experience too. The bad places I lived when I very first got there, that whole feeling of, I did get a little feeling of the creepy every now and then, but by and large it was like, oh, this place is awesome, this place is great, I love my new room, I love my new house, and it just slowly starts to slip away and slide like something eating at the back of your brain that like, there's just something not right here.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt, and so, this progressed, and one of the most significant things that I'd remember is, as I said, most of the flooring in the house was wooden, and it was quite echoey because the cellar underneath. Mm-hmm. But various times I'd be upstairs just lying in bed and I'd hear footsteps up and down the hallway, and I confronted my dad about this, and he actually told me that well, my nan was just completely out of her face, and she'd actually walk up and down there, cursing and doing what drunk people do. And a few instances I'd come downstairs to try and verify the noise, pretend like that's what you do. You tell yourself it's not really happening, and I'd get downstairs and the noise would stop completely, and it was what walking footsteps sounds like. It's not just a little bang from the wind, it's a legit step. So that weighed quite a lot on my mind as a 12-year-old girl. But so, being the older child, I got first pick of the bedroom in the house, and I chose the upstairs bedroom. There were 2 bedrooms downstairs and 3 bedrooms upstairs, and the bedroom I was in, this is where I felt like I was watched most, when I was alone especially. I mean, it was difficult to sleep. I'd never had previous nightmares in my old houses, but I'd literally wake up in night terrors here. And due to the structure of the house, there was like an empty space behind my room of beams that basically held the roof up. And it was too small to convert into a room, so we just literally plasterboarded the area up. So, I had a wall. And on this wall it was like a small little rabbit hole with a latch, and I remember waking up in the morning and finding this open as well, and I just peer into the darkness in terror. So
again, the kind of latch that doesn't just pop open like an actual mechanism sort of latch that hooks in place.
Yeah, this was locked.
And I'm trying to get this straight. You said you had night terrors. Do you mean bad dreams, or do you mean the clinical night terrors where you just wake up screaming and don't have a clue what you were dreaming about?
Not as intense as that, but definitely it woke me up countless nights on end. Just find myself lying in bed in all flustered. So.
And you would wake up to stare into the darkness of this hole to the empty room that should not have been opened.
Yeah, that's happened a good 3 or 4 times, yeah.
That is not a pleasant way to wake up.
It's not at all. So yeah, it really did feel like this house was haunted by both, or more so my nan, because I'm told as a baby she took a liking to me compared to other siblings. and like, you know, I was the preferred child, and she'd always try to keep me close to her, so I really did feel like she'd often spend time in that room. And I mean, I've never been a spiritual person, never really believed in, you know, certain energies taking place in homes and things. Like, the only things I've seen are movies like Paranormal Activity.
That would be a very extreme situation, Paranormal
Yeah.
Activity.
But you look at things like that and you don't really believe it until you experience it. So that did have quite a shift on my opinions.
So what are those opinions now, or are there still yet stories to come?
I mean, it's kind of drawing to the end, so I'll tell you my opinions as of now.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'll give you a little backstory. My mum actually started taking up tarot cards, which are I'm not quite exactly sure, but they're to do with like spirits and.
It's a fortune-telling thing. I'm not sure. I don't know if that's a gypsy or a voodoo thing, but I think it's a gypsy thing. They throw down the cards, and depending on what card and how they interpret it, it can mean all sorts of different things.
Yeah, and I think they're closely related to spirits as well.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah, so my mum took up doing these for just a short period of time, just for, I don't know, maybe a string of hope, just some justification for what's happening. But she'd actually get, you know, I'm not sure on what the cards meant, but there are certain cards which, you know, don't mean good things. And this led to kind of my mum being really creeped out to the point where we didn't want to live in this house any longer. From the point of moving there, as I said, the 3 months there, they were fine. We were happy in that house. And it started going downhill. I mean, my parents, their marriage fell apart. It was a horrible divorce. And, you know, financial problems propped up. And of course, these are all like environmental factors, not necessarily the house's fault. But you can blame it on, I mean, I can say I do blame it on the house, partly just because of everything bad that has built up living in that house. So, I mean, we stayed there. Go on, sorry.
I said that's a sentiment that I understand. I also blamed the failure of my family on the house in Kentucky, because it just seemed like once we got there, everything started falling apart, and the creepiness of the place just added to everybody's paranoia and lack of sleep and ill temper, and it was like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that's how it panned out for me. But yeah, so it became quite a depressing household. It reminded my mum so much of when she was a child. We stayed there for about a year before finally moving, which was about 5 days before Christmas actually, and which leads up to today really, which is I'm in a happy household. Everything's great, and I've never experienced anything like what I experienced then. So you're
saying you just change houses and all of that goes away, all of the latches, all of the noises, and the
Exactly.
Somebody's looking over your shoulder, just instantly gone.
Gone. Nothing. I've not experienced anything like that at all.
Huh. That is, as much as I hate to say it, I'm going to say that's unusual, because you find a pattern, like somebody says they see a ghost, even in my case, oh, you see a ghost, you see something creepy or paranormal. No matter where they go, they see the same things over and over again, which leads people to believe it's not the person in the place. However, you're actually making the exception to the rule here, such that when you leave the place, everything stops and goes back to normal.
Yeah, and I mean, the only way I can try and justify that is both my nan and granddad died in that house, and I don't know, they were there for such a long time. You know how you see on TV, like the haunted programs, how spirits stay in certain places?
Yes, I try not to watch those programs because they're so...
fake.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they lived in that house for such a long time and had been through so much that the house is haunted, and that's how I see it. So there's that.
Seems a little crazy, doesn't it, getting on the internet telling thousands of people that, yeah, I believe in ghosts, my house is haunted. Judge me.
It's strange, isn't it? But that's the story. in short. And I don't know, my spiritual opinions. I do kind of believe that there is something out there, energy. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask this question because this pops up in the comments of every single ghost story video. There's always some huge argument. Are you a religious person? Do you associate with any faith at all?
No, I'm not in any faith at all, no.
Okay, that's not uncommon for your demographic where you live. That's actually normal, all things considered. I just wanted to clear that up because a lot of people are going to ask or give you spiritual advice of some nature.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I was raised in a family that didn't really consider religion. Neither of my parents were religious, so you know, that's never really come into play to my thoughts when connected with anything spiritual.
See, there's another abnormal thing about this story, because most people that claim to see things or experience things that are otherworldly are, you know, in some way a religious person, or have been raised in a highly religious environment where they're experienced to that type of thinking, to where, you know, spirits are everywhere, they're always doing things. But you're saying that was not the case, or you were... how am I trying to say this? Did you receive any sort of religious instruction at all, or is it just like a complete blank minus what you see on TV and maybe little tidbits at school?
Yeah, I mean, all my religious knowledge, primarily from school. I didn't go to a religious school or anything, so, you know, it was your once a week RE lesson, learn a bit about the different religions, so it's really not been a big influence in my life.
It's again very unusual. So, what do you believe now? Spiritualist, energies, don't know what to think?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I mean... from experience, I mean, there's a possibility that there could be things out there that we're not familiar with yet. For me personally, I do kind of believe that something else is there. Just I don't know what it is. You know, I'm a strong believer in science, so maybe one day we'll find out.
Yeah, and everything we've been discussing just flies completely into the face of science. You realize that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of hard for me as well.
Quite contradictory, isn't it?
Oh yeah, believe me, because I get messages in my inbox. I guess we're moving into a completely different part of the video here. People send me messages with lots and lots of paranormal stories. Every time this video gets uploaded, I get no less than 20 to 40 stories. Everybody asks for my advice. Should I see an exorcist? Do I need to get a psychic? How do I get rid of this demon? I think something is watching me. A couple of paranoid schizophrenics will come forward with something about reptilian aliens, or one of the saddest stories actually is there was a 12-year-old boy that had his own religion that he invented in his head and wrote this huge paragraph and told me that this was true, and that if I followed him that all the problems to my stuff would be solved. And I said I was just trying to be nice, and I'm like, that's you know, some really unusual writing there. Do you have a source? And he sent me a made-up source. And then I said, yeah, I couldn't find that, and he just got angry. It's like, you weren't supposed to search for it, you're just supposed to believe me. Just...
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something.
You can't give advice on these sort of things, or
no, you can't. I mean,
you don't know. I don't know crap. People, because I tell ghost stories, expect that I know everything about the paranormal and spiritual, and I'm like, yeah, you should like consider moving or something.
I mean, I think it's a lot to do with the mind as well, especially what the media print in you, kind of, when you, like you said, Paranormal Activity, stupid movies like that, and
yeah, but they were permeated through our culture.
It's true, yeah, but they put a lot of doubts in your head. Like, as I said, this house that I lived in, I feel like everything bad came from that house, and now that I'm gone, everything's fine. I didn't do anything to stop that. It just happened. Like, I didn't think, oh, I need a way to prevent this. So, you know, there's different outcomes.
No, just can't make sense of it all, or I can't.
No, me neither.
Well, unless you've got anything else to share, I was thinking about wrapping this episode up.
Yep, that's me done.
Alright, cool. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Aimie. Her channel is AimieX2. It's mostly a Modern Warfare 3 gameplay commentary channel. Actual PC gamer over here that uses a mouse, if any of you PC gamers want to go over and check that out. And I think every video I've ever seen on your channel was a MOAB or some like really high scoring gameplay. Is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
You don't do that
Moabs
scrub
all
gameplay.
day.
You should play with MLC Stealth sometime and steal all of his kills and screw up his MOABs.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Alright, well, guess that's it. Drifter out.